The clatter of trays and casual laughter filled the mess hall. She wasn't even supposed to be there, just a face in the background, unnoticed by the hardened SEALs who lived and breathed danger. But within minutes, everything changed. A sudden crisis shattered the routine, and in that moment, the very person everyone overlooked became the reason the SEAL team survived. The mess hall was the one place where the tension of deployment seemed to melt away. Long wooden tables stretched under harsh fluorescent lights, carrying trays of half-eaten meals, chipped mugs of coffee, and the lingering smell of powdered eggs and reheated stew. It wasn't glamorous, but to the SEALs stationed here it was routine, and routine meant safety, at least for the moment. She blended in easily, moving quietly among the chatter. No one really paid her much attention. After all, in a world dominated by hardened soldiers with reputations carved from grueling missions, she seemed like a background figure. Just another presence in the sea of uniforms, a reminder that even elite warriors needed support staff. But what the SEALs didn't know, what even she barely admitted to herself, was that her past had forged instincts as sharp as any blade. She wasn't just the girl in the mess hall. She had once been tested in ways no one here could imagine, and though she'd buried that chapter of her life, the echoes of it still shaped every move she made. At the far end of the room, conversations grew louder. Two SEALs exchanged banter over a card game, while another group discussed tomorrow's training schedule. The clink of utensils, the scrape of chairs, the occasional burst of laughter, all of it wove together into a tapestry of ordinary military life. For a brief moment, even war fighters allowed themselves the luxury of feeling human. She carried a tray, weaving between tables, her ears tuned more sharply than most realized. Every detail registered: who sat near the exits, where the shadows fell across the hall, the faint hum of the generator outside. To anyone else, these things were meaningless background noise. To her, they were signals, part of a mental map she built without effort, the kind of awareness that never turned off. If anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed the way her eyes lingered on the door longer than necessary, or how her shoulders tensed, just slightly, when the outer corridor echoed with a sound that didn't fit the pattern of the base. But no one noticed. Why would they? She was invisible here, a civilian face among warriors. And yet, invisibility can be the greatest strength. Because within minutes, this very mess hall, the heart of the base's daily life, would become the center of a sudden, unthinkable crisis. And when chaos erupted, the SEALs would discover that the quiet figure in the corner wasn't background at all. She was about to become the reason they lived to see another sunrise. The moment it happened, no one believed it at first. The mess hall was supposed to be safe, fortified, protected, secure behind layers of guards and checkpoints. But safety, as she knew all too well, was an illusion. It started with a sound. Not the clang of a dropped tray or the murmur of voices, but a sharp, metallic crack that echoed through the corridor leading into the hall. Instantly, her head snapped toward the entrance. Her tray slid from her hands and clattered to the floor, but she didn't even notice. The SEALs reacted a beat slower, not out of weakness, but because in their minds, this place wasn't supposed to be under threat. For just that fraction of a second, their guard was down. And that fraction was all it took. The door burst inward. The first figure through wasn't wearing a U.S. uniform. Black gear, masked face, weapon raised, an intruder. And behind him came two more. Armed, fast, and brutal. Whoever they were, they had slipped through layers of defenses with one goal: to kill or capture the SEAL team inside. Chaos erupted. Chairs overturned. Mugs shattered. Soldiers reached for weapons they didn't have. Most of their rifles were locked away, far from the comfort of the dining hall. The attackers knew it. They had picked their moment perfectly. But she hadn't frozen. Before the first shots rang out, she had already ducked behind a support column, her mind racing. Her heart pounded, but fear didn't control her. Training did. Instinct did. A hidden part of her life, buried for years, roared back to the surface. One of the SEALs lunged toward the enemy barehanded, only to be slammed back with the butt of a rifle. Another scrambled toward the kitchen, maybe hoping for a knife. The attackers barked commands in a foreign tongue, their voices sharp and urgent, corralling the room like wolves closing in on prey. And then she moved. Sliding low across the floor, she reached a fallen tray, yanked the metal serving pan free, and hurled it with precision. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense, but in her hands, it became one. The pan struck the nearest intruder in the faceplate with a sharp crack, staggering him just long enough for a seal to pounce. The room erupted into close-quarters chaos. Fists, trays, overturned chairs, anything that could be used as a weapon. But the seals were still off balance, and the intruders pressed hard. Every second counted. And that was when she made her choice. She could stay hidden, pray the seals regained control. Or she could do what she swore she'd left behind years ago, step into the fight, exposing the truth about who she really was. Her jaw clenched. Decision made. This wasn't going to be a massacre. Not while she was here. The mess hall, once alive with laughter and chatter, was now a storm of shouts, gunfire, and the crash of makeshift weapons. The intruders pressed forward, ruthless and coordinated, confident in their ambush. But they hadn't counted on her. She surged forward, no longer hiding, no longer a shadow in the background. Her movements were fast, precise, the kind that only come from experience. The seals noticed. For a split second, in the middle of the chaos, one of them locked eyes with her, and recognition flickered. Not recognition of who she was, but of what she was. A fighter. She grabbed a chair, swung it with brutal efficiency, and sent one attacker crashing into the mess counter. The impact knocked his weapon loose, and in the same motion, she scooped it up. Her grip was firm, her stance steady. The seals saw it instantly. This wasn't luck. This was training. "Cover the left flank," she shouted, her voice sharp, commanding. And without hesitation, the seals obeyed. For the first time since the ambush began, the balance shifted. With her leading bursts of counterattacks and the seals regrouping, the intruders began to falter. They had expected easy prey, unarmed men caught at mealtime. Instead, they now faced elite soldiers snapping back into combat mode, fueled by her unexpected leadership. Gunfire cracked through the air, shattering light fixtures and peppering the walls. She moved with terrifying calm, weaving through cover, signaling positions, pulling wounded seals behind overturned tables. Every move she made tightened the team's defense, turning chaos into order. Then came the decisive moment. The last intruder, realizing the ambush had collapsed, raised his rifle toward a dazed seal struggling to stand. She didn't think, she reacted. With a single, practiced motion, she fired. The shot rang out clean and final. The man dropped before he could pull the trigger. Silence fell. The mess hall was wrecked. Smoke, shattered glass, overturned trays, groaning soldiers catching their breath. But it was over. The SEAL team was alive. Alive because of her. For a long moment, no one spoke. The SEALs, men who had faced firefights across the world, stared at her with something between shock and awe. Finally, one of them broke the silence. "Who the hell are you?" She lowered the rifle, her chest heaving, eyes sharp but unreadable. For a heartbeat, she seemed like she might answer. But instead, she set the weapon down carefully on the table and stepped back into the shadows, just as the sound of reinforcements thundered down the corridor. The SEALs exchanged glances. Whoever she was, whatever her past, one truth was undeniable. She hadn't just been in the mess hall. She had saved them,